Good afternoon, everyone, and it's great to see people joining us this afternoon for a session on drones, asset management and cost control. This CPD session is being run in conjunction with Connected Places Catapult, and we are delighted to have David Pounder and Grace Hammond here this afternoon to lead the session on this. I myself am the operations manager at ARPAS-UK. We're a day-to-day membership for my day-to-day role rather is the membership side of the organisation, helping members achieve what they need to in the best manner and in the most cost-effective way, whether that's in terms of overcoming barriers to within the industry, whether it's in terms of social media help, it's a variety of things that we do. David is a systems engineer within Connected Places Catapult's Mobility Directorate. He works closely with the Department for Transport and the Civil Aviation Authority, who are the drone regulator, to drive sustainable drone adoption in the UK. Before that, he has worked as a consultant on transportation change programs and has a background in mechanical and robotic engineering. Grace is the account manager for Vantage UAV Drone Services Company, specialising in the property sector. Vantage UAV works closely with organisations to help them maximise the benefit of drones. If you want to go on to the next slide. Okay. Next, there we are. Today's presentation on asset management. We'll look at building assets, the role of drones in inspection, and monitoring side of things, building on what you can expect to see in terms of return on your investment. Sorry, apologies for the dogs clattering in the background. I'm going to now, because I don't want them to take over, I'm going to mute myself and hand over to David. Very much for joining us.
Brilliant. Thank you very much for the introduction. So hello and welcome everyone. I'm going to skip over those slides that we didn't manage to see and just go to my slides. So it's really good to be here. My name's David and I'm a systems engineer working at the Catapult. So I'll take you through the bulk of the content today, including a bit of context, introducing the things that we've done through the Pathfinder program and some case studies of how you can use drones, and then kind of wrap up with kind of why and how you could consider adopting drones to support your business and cut your maintenance repair bills. And I'll also be joined by Grace, who will add some kind of real life case studies and more information from Vantage UAV, who do this stuff for real. So just to set the scene and why I'm here. So the Catapult network is part of a network of innovation centres across the UK, which aim to drive growth in the UK's economy. And I'm part of the Connected Places Catapult. And the focus of this catapult is all around innovation in transportation and place. So part of that is the kind of air mobility team, which I'm a part of, and that covers things from urban air mobility to clean flight to drones. And that's why we're obviously here today talking about drones. So we're currently running a program called the Pathfinder Catalyst program. That's all about enabling the safe adoption of drones across UK industries. And it's doing that by showcasing the benefits of integrating drones into existing workflows using the technology and regulation that's kind of more or less available today. So this program is sponsored by the Department for Transport, the Department for Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and we've partnered with the CAA as well. And just in reference to the Venn diagram, this program is really all about trying to link the problems that the industry are facing up with the solutions that drones and kind of drone solution providers can solve those problems with, and then advising the government on how they can keep up with this quite rapidly developing area of the market in terms of funding, policy and regulation to keep things ticking along. So the area that we're talking about today is, of course, saving money in asset inspection and maintenance, but that's a really broad brief. So in this program in particular, we did work in a particular sector, which was the housing sector, to gather learnings. But it's worth saying that all of these are really broadly applicable to many different types of assets and sectors. So even though we're going to be talking about examples in the housing sector, the principles, the technologies and the ways of working can really be transferred to all of these and more that you can see on the right here. So, take what we're talking about today and see how it applies to the sectors that you're working in, and maybe that's a good discussion point later as well. So with that in mind, let's take a look at some of the issues that the housing sector faces. So the cost of maintenance and repairs are going up. That's the headline. So Inside Housing found that housing associations spend 8% more money. They spent 8% more money, in the lead up to 2019, including 6% on routine, 13% on planned, and 5% on major repairs. And I think the figures over the last couple of years are slightly more unusual, but I think you can understand why. But essentially, rises are forecast to continue, especially while new safety legislation is brought in. And so the drive for efficiency, is going to continue, and new methods to support that are going to be more and more important. And just on the right-hand side, to kind of show the size of the prize, really, across the UK, there was £6.3 billion spent on repairs and maintenance in the 2019-20 financial year. And that's just on social housing alone, so it doesn't count any commercial, residential, privately owned properties. It's a very large amount of money spent on quite a small sector. So how can drones help? So I'm just going to get those pictures up. So through the Pathfinder programme, we partnered with Vantage UAV and Yorkshire Housing. And Yorkshire Housing are a housing association. And we funded a demonstration of drone inspection services that they could use. And the purpose of this was to show how a property management organisation, or indeed an asset management organisation, with limited use of drones prior to this, could easily make use of drone services by partnering with an experienced provider like Vantage UAV. So across the 3 sites you can see below, Vantage UAV carried out drone inspections and produced pictures, videos, 3D models, and BIM models that Yorkshire Housing could then use for their asset management. And these outputs were presented generally in browser accessible formats, so that Yorkshire Housing could use them in the first instance without having to make significant changes to any of their current technology or business processes. So I'm going to show you a quick video now, which kind of brings it to life. So I'm not just talking at you. And then I'll hand over to Grace from Vantage to talk you through some more of the detail of this case study and others. So hopefully we can all hear this, and we'll play a couple of minutes video. Connected Places Catapult is the UK's innovation accelerator for cities, transport and places. As part of the DFT-funded Drone Pathfinder Catalyst programme, we're here today with Yorkshire Housing and Vantage UAV to demonstrate the benefits of using drones to inspect buildings and property. The inspection, maintenance and repair of buildings and property is a major cost for organisations, especially housing associations.
So a typical building like this one, to get up to the different levels of roof that we have on the building, we would need scaffolding, we'd need maybe a cherry picker. We'd obviously have our staff, our surveyors working at height as well, which obviously introduced costs and danger. And of course this building is occupied, we have residents in there, so it's quite intrusive.
This is where drones come in, as they allow you to capture high quality imaging and data without the need for unsafe manual inspection at height.
We're looking at whether or not we have leaks in the roof, there are cracked tiles or more causant factors. We also are taking videos, and we will merge all of this together to allow us to create 2-dimensional and a 3-dimensional image of the building, and that output will allow Yorkshire Housing to have complete digitalised representation of their asset.
It's something we've been wanting to do, but really didn't have the partners in place to enable us to do that. But from what I've seen so far, we can get much closer, a lot of detail of the property, and from a Yorkshire Housing point of view, that means we can plan more effectively for how we repair and maintain our buildings in the future.
Vantage UAV are one of the many drone service providers on the market today, and the market's expected to grow significantly over the next few years. To find out more about how the Connected Places Catapult is helping unlock the benefits of drone services, please get in touch. Well, there you go. So that's a bit of an introduction. I'm now going to hand over to Grace from Vantage, if you're there, Grace.
I'm here.
Over to you.
Good stuff. Thanks so much, David and Elena, for the introduction. As you both mentioned, I'm Grace and I'm an account manager for Vantage UAV. As a company, we work across a variety of sectors, including obviously the housing sector, as well as solar and agriculture, and many others within the infrastructure and sort of helping with the drone solution side of things. So this here, which David is going to lovely play for me, is a short video showcasing what Vantage UAV do by way of capturing data and the outputs that are there and helping to maximize the use of drones in the housing sector, amongst others. These inspections take place quickly and provide lots of detail. Following on about what David said about St. Luke's Church for Yorkshire Housing, this inspection we performed for Yorkshire Housing, supported by CPC. With this project, we did a 3D model, which you can see here on screen, and the total inspection took overall a day and a half to complete. This was obviously a very complex structure. Regular high-rise or smaller assets would be done in a lot shorter amount of time. The data is then hosted on a platform, allowing the organisation to be able to perform inspections remotely and in much less time. By having all this data, it allowed Yorkshire Housing to have a detailed overview of the condition of their building, helping them to make more informed decisions when it comes to the repairs. With the platform tool, it allows you to select and annotate key areas which need attention, like broken windows and broken tiles. And another tool, which you can see here, is being able to do live measurements that are millimetre accurate. All of these details can then be exported into a report. What you see here is the 2D portal that we offer, which is a similar model. And here we're doing a rooftop inspection, showing the level of details that can be captured by drone footage. As in the 3D platform, you can annotate and select and add in severity factors, but also add in sort of remedial action and like just to be able to kind of report on what needs to be done within next steps. All of this is geotagged, meaning it's all location based. This again can all be transpired into a tailored report, ready to share with internal and maintenance teams, helping them to locate where those issues are that need to be further explored or repaired, and will save on time and cost. If we can move on to the next slide. Perfect, thanks. So if we jump back to the example with Yorkshire Housing and St. Luke's Church, in this circumstance, the organisation was looking to replace the entire roof on this property. And that was estimated at in around £350,000. After a drone inspection was conducted, it was therefore decided that an entire roof wasn't exactly needed, but a couple of repairs here and there that totaled out to about £50,000 to £60,000, which meant that the organisation was able to save hundreds of thousands of pounds that could then be redirected to other areas in further need. By using this technology, it allowed them to have that detailed information on their buildings, showcasing what needed to be fixed and where the issues were and to what extent. They were able to gain this information in a short amount of time by using drones, but also allowed them to have a huge cost saving. When it came to the maintenance as well as time saving, it also saved on risk and all of the inconveniences that Andy actually mentioned on the video to their tenants. Another case study I'd like to share with you that we did a drone survey on, which will be on the next slide, was a rooftop inspection that we did for Nottingham City Homes. We're talking about a middle property here, if you see on that bottom left, where there's all those blue bubbles. that middle property that was obviously sharing a roof with 2 adjoining properties on either side of it. The tenant was having huge problems with damp on their walls, and this had been going on for quite a long time. She'd raised the issues with maintenance teams, and they had come out multiple times to perform inspections and assessments and fixtures. A grand total of 3 times scaffolding got put up to be able to fix the problems, but they were heavily focused on a dormer that was right above where the water damage was. And they kept returning to fix this, but the issue still persisted. So when this had all failed, Nottingham City Homes decided to get Vantage on board and to perform a drone inspection. And from what we found from that, from doing across the entire roof, not just the property in question, we were able to take a step back, and they were able to see multiple issues that were contributing factors to the water damage and the damp. And what you can see was there was, cabling running underneath the flashing, there were cracks in the tiles, like holes, and we were able to gain a shot that you wouldn't necessarily be able to reach with traditional methods with this chimney stack. And you can see that there's quite a lot of gaps in there, all allowing water damage to be able to enter the property and cause quite huge issues. So you're able to get a full picture of the condition of the property from the exterior, and angles that you wouldn't necessarily be able to get by using traditional methods. And all of this using 4K resolution cameras, meaning you can obviously see it from an overall perspective, but be able to zoom in and be able to see great detail. If we can move on to the next slide. Perfect, thanks, David. So with the costings, most organisations who aren't using drones are using scaffolding or roadside inspections or a number of other possibilities. These come with their limitations, either be it cost or time or lack of detail and also risk. Using drones are an affordable way to be able to maximise overall decisions and a proactive way of saving on maintenance costs. Here is a rough example of the saving that can be for a housing organisation when using drones over regular inspection methods. So say if we had a housing organisation that had around 26,000 properties, and using traditional methods, you'd say want to do a small percentage of that, say 1,300 properties. Using traditional methods, that'd be around £700 each. That's a huge chunk of costing for an asset team of £910,000. Whereas if you were able to shift your methods to using technology like drones and doing the same number of properties in around £180 each, you've got a more cost-effective figure there of £234,000, meaning that overall cost saving is £676,000, and that's a minimum. So it's the opportunity to be able to cost save and redirect costing and funding towards other areas that are potentially in more need is available. Providing that greater detail to make the decisions and have that information can help with other areas also, like legal disrepair. If we can, next slide, please. Right. So from these examples, it indicates the cost saving from using drone technologies. So the largest saving is in that initial inspection. Gaining that information on overall building condition before making any of those fixtures is crucial. This information can help you make those more informed decisions rather than going straight onto the repair side of things. Have an idea of kind of what's the overall condition, so then you can direct your workforce to kind of what needs to be done and prioritize. By being aware of all these issues, from points of interest and those minor issues to some of those severity 5s that we kind of use on our portals of need to be fixed urgently, you can monitor them and ensure that all of your plans of works can be scheduled and make sure you're aware of everything that's going on or that could potentially go wrong in the future. Smaller issues, that leads on to smaller issues can develop into larger ones, especially if not monitored and fixed, therefore resulting in more expensive repairs. So cost reductions can come from tackling those issues early. By using drones and having all that intel, you can manage the maintenance team's schedules more effectively and therefore waste less of your resource, and also time and costing, as well as risk. Off the back of times of COVID, there has been a huge backlog from what we found out from the sector of maintenance work and repairs work. So being able to have that information and that insight on what is important, and you can schedule that in, can be really, really helpful. Without using drones, you could be making planned maintenance works that might not be a top priority. So we saw this from the Yorkshire housing perspective with that beautifully church that had been converted into apartments. That was £350,000 that they were going to invest into a new roof, when necessarily that much didn't need to be pumped into that building. So therefore they were able to take that remaining cost of £300,000 and redirect that to other properties that potentially needed it more so. So there is a huge amount of time wasted with repairs and maintenance teams, as there are frequently multiple visits to the same property. Same thing going back to the Nottingham City homes, where if a drone inspection had been carried out initially, it means that there wouldn't have been multiple visits from maintenance teams, scaffolding put up multiple times, and allowing you to be able to kind of make best use of time of your workflow and all overall costing. So using drones removes the need to go on site initially and allows inspections to be conducted remotely, allowing more inspections to be carried out in much less time. By using some of these portals that we do offer at Vantage, it means that an inspection of a property can be carried out from your desk, and your workforce can kind of go through multiple assets and inspections throughout a shorter time period. Drones allow you to get a full overview of your property and are able to zoom in and out, like we're using the 4K resolution camera, when those inspections are performed on the roof or rather than from the roadside. And this can make sure that you're not missing overall problems that might not necessarily be picked up if you're not able to have all of those angles and be able to inspect your building of a full overview ability. Drones removes the issue of relying on your tenants and customers to come forward to report those issues. So some of which can have a knock-on effect. So using this technology is an extremely proactive method of performing those inspections. And that is helping tenants on saving time and overall cutting down those costs. Thanks. Ready to hand back to you, David.
Brilliant. I was just trying to find my unmute button. No, thank you very much, Grace. No, that's great. Thank you for that and providing a bit more detail there on some of the use cases. I'm just going to pick up on an additional use case, and this one we've picked out because it's a great example of slightly longer term savings, because Renfrewshire Council have been using drones for quite a while now. So since 2016, they'd been using mobile elevated platforms and scaffolding to carry out facade and roof inspections on their 12,000 properties. But now they kind of regularly use drones where possible. That's meant, previously when they'd inspected roof tiles with a 30-year lifespan, they weren't actually able to inspect them. So at the end of their lifespan, they were replaced regardless. Since using drones, they've been able to assess the health kind of more effectively and decide whether to maintain those assets for an additional few years, whether that's 2, 5, 10 years. But I suppose the key point here is that using traditional methods, that data gathering process would have been too slow and expensive for this approach to be viable, really. So using drones has been quite transformative in Renfrewshire's approach to asset management. And just to highlight how much money they're saving using this approach, they'd saved £4 million plus, and they'd allowed in a year and allowed their entire programme of works to be carried out in 2 months, where previously it would have been multiple years. So I think a really positive example, in addition to the examples Grace has showed, of longer term use and how it can really save money and start adding up. So we've talked a lot about kind of building inspection use cases. I just want to highlight a bit of a whistle-stop tour of some of the other things you can do with them, and Grace has mentioned some of these. So just to go around, so validation of undergone repairs, so tracking progress and making sure that repair works have been carried out, and you can repeatedly collect information over time, which is harder to do with traditional methods because it's more expensive to do it on a repetitive basis. Thermal surveys can be used to justify interventions, reducing energy wastage through roofs, windows, and defective installations. And you could also use them on other assets to check for overheating, for example. Estimating works and projects. So like in the video that Grace showed earlier, once you've captured the data, you can then go back and inspect it and measure using the tools that Grace was showing. You don't need to go on site to measure up for new works. Solar panel inspection, but indeed any equipment inspection, particularly good because it's out of reach, and you can, like Grace demonstrated, you can get quite a lot of detail, inspect for any faults, and build up of dirt, which would reduce the operating efficiency if left untreated, but that really applies across many assets. Of course, they can be used for land surveying, not just assets, and also for validating and assessing insurance claims. So, collecting evidence in relation to damage. So there's a really broad range of use cases for drones in asset management, and we've only touched on a few of them really today. And just to summarize some of the benefits, I mean, the key here really is don't do drones for the sake of it, just like any technology. You think about what your organization is trying to achieve and how drones support you in getting there, and what the benefits that you want to get from it are. So some of the key points here are really about minimizing the use of scaffolding and mobile platforms, which saves money on inspections in the short term and reduces disruption. Being able to diagnose problems more quickly and effectively, allowing off-site assessment and targeted maintenance, and both of those things ultimately facilitating a move towards a slightly more preventative maintenance regime rather than reactive, which obviously saves money in the longer term. Of course, some of the social and environmental benefits as well, such as improving the safety by kind of reducing the need to work at height, and reducing the use of heavy plant, and being able to conduct these thermal surveys to improve operating thermal efficiency of buildings. So a wealth of benefits really. So a final slide, but a really important one. We've kind of discussed how you can use drones and what the benefits of those things are. But where do you start? So there are lots of ways you could do it. But if your organization has limited experience or maybe no experience, it can be sensible, like most things, to take an iterative approach and start with a kind of trial or proof of concept using kind of good practice from any other project or change process. Like I said earlier, it's really key to remember the real value isn't just in flying the drone itself, although that might sound like the fun bit. It's really about choosing the right tool for the job and using the captured data to drive better decisions. So for that reason, we do often recommend that organizations with limited experience work with experienced partners like Vantage UAV in the first instance, so that they can focus on the outcomes, the so what, rather than worrying about how to get the drones in the air. So we've summarized this as a kind of high-level approach, and the 3 stages are initiation, proof of concept, and scaling up. So I'll just talk through those briefly. So initiation is all about putting in place the appropriate governance and business case, and ensuring the organization's got the capacity and kind of capability to innovate, really. So making sure you've got a bit of resource, the headspace and decision-making power to facilitate the process. The proof of concept is about working with a drone operator as a trusted partner to deliver, maybe one, maybe more proof of concept use cases to kind of prove that it works and kind of validate the business case and learn some lessons. And like I said, while it is viable to have an in-house drone function, it's not likely to be the first step. So this is where working with a partner who's done it before is really kind of an obvious first step. It allows you to learn from them and not have to worry about some of the slightly more difficult things that are along the bottom of this diagram that you'll pick up through the process. You'll also at this stage want to make sure that you've identified a good use case, which hopefully you've kind of thought about beforehand. So that's something where the benefits are going to be most obvious, something that's hard to inspect normally, or the data that you get is actually going to be useful. So yeah, you could go to Vantage UAV as a really reputable provider. You can also use ARPAS' member finder to find specific operators if you've got some niche needs. And the third one is all about scaling up. So it's really about taking the learnings from the first few stages and working out what you're going to do next. So it's developing the right business and operating models to scale the operations, whether that's outsourcing it, doing it in-house, or doing some kind of hybrid model. So you think about what you've learned from the trials and use that good practice to start scaling in a sustainable way. But like I said, what's important is you don't need to do this all in one go. Start with the basics and scale it up when you've found what works. And importantly, don't do drones for the sake of it. You want to think about what your organization is trying to achieve and how drones can support you in getting there. So that is the end of this presentation. So we've got plenty of time if there are questions. So I suppose let's take a look at the Q&A section and we'll ask the other guys to come back on video, I think. I'll stop sharing now.
There we go. We've had a question which I have written an answer to because it was easier to be able to, I have not included a link, include a link to the, but let's continue with the other question. How do we get trained? Is it best a surveyor trains for drone use? Is there involvement with professional bodies, e.g. CICES, ICE, RICS, TSA, etc.? So to train, you will need to find an RAE entity who is authorised by the CAA to provide drone training. The CAA do have a list of people who can do this, but it is a little bit tricky to find. We have a list on our website too, and I'll include the information here shortly to give you, so that you can find those who are ARPAS members as well. They do provide training across the UK and in a variety of methods. So obviously, so either in person or via online sessions just like this as well. And a number of them will also take you through in-person actual drone flight, so you can practice your skills too, which is rather crucial. Beyond that, so once you have your basic set of qualifications, you'll then need to build on that to find out what it is that you exactly need, whether it's thermal imagery or LiDAR or photogrammetry or a particular type of software that you need. You'll need to ensure that you can find the right provider for that. Again, your REA should be able to take you through that. The training provider can. And absolutely, we do have involvement with professional bodies. The details, for example, of this CPD series has been shared with all the people you mentioned there, along with people from local government authorities too. David, is there anything, and Grace, was there anything else that you would like to add to that?
No, I think that was answered actually very, very well.
Do we plan to continue the CPD series? Yes, there are a few more sessions still available going on tomorrow and next week. So tomorrow's session is Feel the Heat. It's all about thermal imagery and how you can monitor heat loss and how drones have revolutionized the methods that you can do this with. Tuesday, we have the ins and outs of drone insurance, what you really need to know about it. It's one of those things that it's a necessary evil, but actually really important to keep the industry safe. We have a very good track record and we want it to stay that way. And then obviously once this particular series has finished, we will be posting links for all the videos online. So you will absolutely be able to rewatch the whole series if you so wish, absolutely, without a problem. That's not a problem. And we will contact all those who have attended the sessions to let them know when they are available. And you can share them with your friends and family. Okay, there's another question. Who handles the permissions? It sounds as if there may be a lot of red tape. So permissions, obviously you need to get your permissions to fly to start with, and that's handled by the CAA, the aviation regulator, as I mentioned. In terms of beyond that, it's really up to the drone operator. Grace, do you want to sort of take over from this side?
Yeah. Absolutely. So when it comes to kind of flying in certain areas, from our side at Vantage, we are operations team, who Tom has actually put himself in the chat and said willing to answer any questions. We take on board. We take on board dealing with any of those sorts of permissions to be able to fly in certain areas, and we have really kind of strong ability to be able to fly in sort of some areas that a lot of people can't. Also, when it comes to where we're flying, we also like to let housing organisations advise people within the area the fact that we are going to be operating. We also let police know, so there's no problems going on there. So everything on that sort of side gets handled on our side.
Yeah, I'd just reiterate as well that it's definitely the reason why we advocate a kind of iterative way of working and also partnering with experienced providers, because like Grace said, they know this stuff in and out. It's their job and legal responsibility to know this stuff, and it actually takes a lot of the pressure off organizations who are doing it for the first time, so that you guys can focus on what you actually need to get out of it, and using the data to make better decisions. So it really is key to not get bogged down in some of the detail if you're just trying it for the first time, and I would recommend working with someone.
Yeah. Can be quite a tricky process, so it's good to have someone.
Absolutely, I would.
Exactly. I'd also just point. I'd just point at a document that we've just released through the Pathfinder program, which you can find on our website, which I'll put in the chat. And that is it's called the Drone Readiness Assessment Toolkit. It's essentially the last slide I showed. It's kind of an expanded few-page document which kind of explains that diagram. And it's got a few kind of frequently asked questions and how-tos at the bottom. So I'll pop a link in the chat and you can see that under the heading Drone Readiness Assessment. Do take a look there. There's also some case studies on that webpage, but it is under construction, so some of the links aren't all there, but the ones that are there should be quite interesting to view.
Absolutely. Indeed. And do we have any more questions from people at the moment? Just going to check the chat side of things and see if anyone's put a pop-up to anything in there. Nope, nothing there at the moment. So I think if that is that, we'll give everyone a moment more to ask any questions, and if not, we will give you 15 minutes back of your day so that you can enjoy this sunshine that we're all experiencing at the moment.
I'm experiencing it strongly on my face, as you can see.
Same here. I just shift.
No, that's been really good. So thank you guys for those who've asked questions, and thanks for hosting us.
Indeed. Well, thank you very much as well. And as I said, in due course, we'll post this up onto the website so that you can watch again if you so wish. So thank you very much indeed to our panelists, to David and to Grace. And thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. I hope you found it useful. If you would like to get in touch with any of us, if you could pop your, David and Grace, if you could just pop your email into the chat, that would be useful.
Absolutely.
As necessary, people can get in touch further. Very much indeed, and we will see everyone. Of course, as I mentioned, there's still time to sign up for the last 3 sessions. Thank you very much. So, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed, David and Grace.
Cheers.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Cheers. Thank you.